Hey YouTube, I'm doing outstanding. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I am with none other than Nathan Capizer. How are you doing?
Hey, how's it going, man? Great to be here.
Oh man, I'm doing outstanding. So Nathan Capizer, I've mentioned him before on the channel. He's the host of Silph Radio podcast. It's an awesome podcast. I absolutely suggest listening to it if you're into Pokemon at all. He's got a couple other podcasts, but I'll admit I haven't actually listened to them.
Oh, that's okay. What's the matter? You don't like Batman? You don't like Batman?
Yeah, I
just
haven't looked into it much.
I'm just playing.
What is it? So it's the Fairpoint podcast and the Fair Enough podcast?
Well, it's Fairpoint podcast. They're actually, as of a few months ago, is another podcast calling themselves the Fairpoint podcast. But
Gotcha.
Don't get it twisted. We are the Fairpoint podcast, but it's not the Fairpoint podcast. It's Fairpoint podcast.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Fairpoint podcast, Fair Enough podcast, and Silph Radio, a Pokemon podcast. And as of June, we have a fourth member to the family, Riddle Me This Batman podcast. So that's been a lot of fun, too.
All right, there you go. So I'll make sure to put whatever links I can down in the bottom, but you should be able to find any of those podcasts anywhere you listen to podcasts. So let's get on to today's topic. We're talking about Dexit, which is Sword and Shield, Pokemon Sword and Shield to be specific here. So I don't know how much you looked into the whole situation that's been going on.
Oh, I'm aware.
Yeah. So basically, for those of you who don't know what's going on, Pokemon fans are accusing the developers of Pokemon Sword and Shield for being lazy and not including all 1,000 plus Pokemon in the new Nintendo Switch game. And I 100% agree because, one, they already have the 3D models from earlier 3DS games. It wouldn't be that hard. And honestly, I'm incredibly disappointed. I actually bought a Switch specifically for this game. Played a little bit of Pokemon Let's Go. I actually beat the game in like a weekend. And then I returned my Switch after all this whole Dexit stuff happened.
Oh, man.
So,
wow, you straight returned the Switch to the store, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't play around with game. I'm a game developer myself.
Oh, cool.
I'm not big or anything. I've only made my own personal games, but I recognize the fact that they're being lazy here. They are a AAA title company. They make more money than pretty much any other game developer out there, and they can't put in that little effort.
Well, So I don't know. Whenever it feels like whenever there's any controversy, I always happen to be in this weird predicament where I'm like, yeah, I'm mad too, but for slightly different reasons, and I disagree with everyone on both sides, and I think everyone's being too. So I don't know. So I'm in this weird position where, like, I agree it is a huge deal that the National Dex is not in this game. That is not okay, and it is a serious problem. So whenever I'm in a conversation with someone who's like, okay, come on, who's like treating me like I'm just being a naysayer, I'm like, no. It is a legit problem. Like, people aren't just, like, I know haters gonna hate on the internet. And fans are going to hate. More than haters are going to hate, lovers are going to hate. The people that love your product are going to hate so hard on it. But this is a serious problem. That said, I'm a little off-put by how mean everyone's being to Game Freak about this. And
oh, absolutely.
I don't think... Now, I'm not... So there was a thing going around the internet recently where, like, people were saying, it's Nintendo's fault. Like, Nintendo puts all this pressure on Game Freak, and I've seen that refuted. It's become almost a meme, the idea that Game Freak is an indie development company, because people are like, Nintendo's this huge thing, and Game Freak doesn't make that money. No, they're not an indie development company. They have money. They could easily hire people. That said, though, like, Nintendo does kind of call the shots. Like, if Nintendo says we're not putting out your Pokemon game, then guess what? They're not putting out the Pokemon game. And there's nothing.
Well, the main thing is there's actually a primary company called the Pokemon Company, in which Game Freak, Nintendo, and one other company owns the shares for. And they're kind of the main controller here, but they're making so much damn money. So another thing with Game Freak.
But like they in some ways they are, but at the end of the day, if Nintendo says we're killing the 3DS and we're moving everything to the Switch,
Yeah.
there's not much you can do. You can be like, well, I'm going to keep making 3DS games. And Nintendo's like, okay, well, have fun playing them with your mom because no one else is going to be legally allowed to play a copy. So that's what I mean. Like, the Pokemon Company is technically in control, but Nintendo is in control of the
Absolutely.
the thing that directly affects what they're even going to be able to do with Pokemon.
So one interesting thing, I don't have the quote in front of me right now, but so I'm definitely misquoting this, but I remember reading somewhere that one of the Game Freak devs had stated that 3D is not something that's within his repertoire. He doesn't want to work on it. He wants to go back to 2D. I was like, for a AAA game that's intended to be in 3D, that's not a good thing to announce.
Oh, man.
You know?
Well, I hate to say this then because it makes me giddy with excitement, even though I know it'll never happen, just to know that I'm not alone. Because I fucking agree. I've been saying for years that Pokemon was not going to make the jump to 3D well, and that the DS...
It didn't.
Yeah, I don't like the way like X and Y and Sun and Moon and all them play. Like, I'm not insulting the generation overall. There's a lot I like about those gens. But I've said this on the show before, Silph Radio, but for the benefit of your listeners, I'll repeat myself. Like, there's an element of imagination when you're playing the top-down 2D games.
Absolutely.
You know when you're walking through Viridian Forest that the forest is comprised of more than like what 75 trees in a row that are like planted in straight horizontal rows.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you see it in 3D, it's harder to imagine that when you're literally seeing a 3D image of 75 trees planted in horizontal rows.
Especially when they can't make it a true forest, you know, like if they did something along the lines of Breath of the Wild, you know, it may be a lot easier. But we're so much further from a game like that. And that, because I can see it very well being painted in a Breath of the Wild style. I think that would go really well if they had the right developers. But the thing is, these developers are not known for their 3D work. They're known for their 2D work, and I think it would have been better if Pokemon stayed that way.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the 3DS, well, the DS, not even the 3DS, and the 3DS is just another DS as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not excluding it from this designation, but the DS and the 3DS is the perfect system for RPGs and Pokemon to boot. And I agree, in order to, like, actually, a few months before they made the announcement that the National Dex wasn't going to be making the jump to the Switch, I had said to my roommate, like, it would be great to see a Pokemon game like Breath of the Wild, but the only way I feel like that could happen is if it's not a core series game that you can bring your whole team to, and if it's actually like Breath of the Wild, a singular story that you're playing through and is meant to just be, hey, it's like Gale of Darkness XD or whatever. This is just a story that you're playing, and so there's only the Pokemon that are relevant to this story in it. Problem is, this is a mainline game, and if the national, like I don't play video games anymore. I don't have the time to, and Pokemon are the only games I buy because when I'm level grinding in Pokemon, it's more meaningful than when I do it in Chrono Trigger, even if Chrono Trigger is a better game, because I know that this Pokemon I'll be able to bring with me to the next game and the next game and the next game.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know if you're a huge fan of PewDiePie or anything, but in one of his recent Minecraft videos, you know, his entire series, he's got these animals that, you know, he names them and he keeps with them, and I think that's the same type of thing. Is we all feel for these animals. It's different than just leveling a character. These are our pets. We name them. We love them. We cherish them, even though they're just pixels, you know. Like, my Charmander is different than your Charmander. He's mine.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember, you know, when I was just a kid, I was maybe 10 years old or so when my parents got me my first Game Boy Advance. And Pokemon Fire Red was my first ever video game that was mine. And I remember starting off with that Charmander, and I loved him. You know, it was different. And that's what makes Pokemon different, is that we are connected to these characters. And so it's really disappointing to see them get rid of so many. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a Reddit poll to see who are the favorites out of Pokemon. And sure, the obvious ones stood out like Pikachu and Charizard, but it did show that on average, every Pokemon is somebody's favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just the crazy part. Like, there are some really stupid ones out there that, realistically shouldn't exist, but they're still somebody's favorite somehow.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it really is. But
I think even the least liked one was like Cascoon, and but its two other sides were still,
but I really feel
genuinely loved.
Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, and stop me if I don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm not a game developer. But I feel like it's sort of asking the impossible of them. Like, yes, they have like the models from the 3DS, but to create an immersive game with over 800 different like customizable unique monsters that you're gonna travel with, and all of them are gonna have like ride animations and walking animations and battle animations and move animations, and how this move works is how it looks is gonna have to be programmed differently for Horsey than it is for Lapras, and like that's a monumental. Like, if they're making that, they better damn well be making something that's not going to be defunct in a couple years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I understand that. And as far as that goes, I don't know how much you've played the recent Pokemon games like Let's Go, but they're not that strong with the animations. They don't tend to look different per Pokemon. They simply move the location of where it origins. Like, especially for like, something like Bubble. It's still the same animation. It's just like they shift it to a better location for said Pokemon.
Sure.
Sometimes they don't even do that. And that's another sign of their weakness, because we've seen modders who mess with ROMs do just absolutely beautiful jobs with the animation without being paid at all. So
yeah, and I'm not
being said,
contradicting that, but I mean, like, at the same time, it's different when you're a modder with a passion for something like doing this.
Absolutely. Well, you'd think that the company making it would have a passion.
No, but I mean, and they have deadlines, and they have like payroll, and they have like so many other things to take into consideration.
So I think that the main problem the main thing that it seemed that you overlooked there when you were talking about that was that most of those Pokemon don't actually show up in the world like they do in previous games. None of these like extra Dex Pokemon would be showing up in the world unless they're walking with you. So there's a little bit less that needs to be done, just because they're not going to naturally spawn anywhere, and so that makes life a little bit easier. But yeah, I can see that that is a lot of Pokemon. It's actually over 1,000 now, and yeah, I can definitely see that being difficult. But their motto is "gotta catch them all." It's not gotta catch some of them.
Yeah.
And like even on their Twitter, it's like catching them all since '96, but you can't do that anymore. And that's really where it's hurting people. Is the entire theme of the series is catching them all. That's the entire point for a lot of people. Personally, I just like exploring the worlds. I've never really cared much for actually fighting the Pokemon or doing anything like that.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, it's like the fighting part is like, it's cool. I like seeing the moves, but really, I just love getting into the stories. Like, oh my god, the Aleph runes from what was that? The second gen,
Gold
I
and
think.
Silver, yeah.
Yeah, exploring those caves, that was so cool to my young mind. I was just like, I'm in a cave. These are cool Pokemon. I love this.
Yeah,
and it's something that we kind of miss out on now.
With games in general, that's where I lean, is exploration.
Yeah.
And
man.
with Pokemon specifically, like, it's all about the world building. Like, so long as the world building in the new gen is good, I'm still a Pokemon fan, Yeah. I don't care if the game sucks because, well, I do, because at the end of the day, that's going to dramatically affect the series, whether they're able to produce good games. But like what matters to me is that they create good Pokemon and good contributions to the world.
Speaking of good Pokemon, have you seen the new Galar Weezing?
I've seen the new Galar Weezing.
I love it. It's Doug Dimmadome and a bong and so many other things. And
I'm impartial to it. Everyone seems to either love or hate it. I'm impartial. absolutely love Morpeko. I'm a big dark type fan. Dark type's my favorite type.
Yeah.
And I like Morpeko a lot.
Steel and fire for me.
What's that?
Steel and fire are mine.
Oh, okay.
I love steel Pokemon. I love fire Pokemon. For those of you who are watching this, we're actually going to be recording a Silph Radio podcast after this.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking about Beldum, which is one of my personal favorites. So please go over there to check that out. But anyway, back to the conversation.
Yeah, check it out. It'll be out in I'm thinking in September. So.
All right. Yeah, I don't know when my video's coming out either. Probably tomorrow.
Okay, so yeah, you guys may have about a month to wait, but
But you can check out all of his other stuff. So.
Yeah, and if anyone's listening in the future or whatever, that episode is going to be episode number 75. So, be easy to find.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah.
75. Wow, you're up to 75. That's amazing.
I know. I got to figure out what I'm doing for my 100th.
Well, it's funny. I think you started that like way back in like what 2016 or earlier.
It was 16 or 14. I don't remember. We started Fairpoint in 2012. I think Silph Radio was 2014.
It was so weird going back and listening to. I did listen to like one of the first episodes of Fairpoint.
Oh God.
I think. It was just like
so bad.
Dear Lord.
It's so bad.
Yeah. It's funny. I actually only started this channel like a month ago, and I'm already up over 50 because I upload once a day.
And you started better than we did.
Well, it's a little bit easier for me because it's a gaming channel, and I don't have to do as much editing or anything. I just throw it up there, and people will watch it.
Oh, so your standards are lower. I see.
Yeah, exactly. Like this will go mostly unedited. I'll remove the part at the beginning, and that's about it. That's all the editing I'm gonna do.
Yeah, if anyone goes to check out Fairpoint and Fair Enough, pick a newer episode with a cool topic, and then after you've listened to a few new ones, if you're brave enough to go start with the backlog.
Yeah. As far as Silph Radio goes, you can pretty much hop in anywhere.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
I think it was post your 50th, you have Ash Ketchum doing your intro.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
The coolest thing in the world. I owe all thanks to that to my friend Brianna. She's on the podcast, and she met. Do some editing because I know her name is on the tip of my tongue.
It's all good. We can just say Ash Ketchum.
Veronica Taylor, who does Ash Ketchum's voice, and yeah, she was kind enough to do that for us. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, as soon as I heard that, because I think like when I first found your podcast, I was just, God, I can't even remember what I was doing. I was just looking up Pokemon-related podcasts because I had just gotten back into it. It's funny, I actually got back into it because I downloaded Pokemon Silver, the ROM.
Ooh.
So I could play it on my phone. And I was like, wait a minute, why am I playing Pokemon on my phone when I can play Pokemon on my phone with Pokemon Go? So I got back into that, like really heavily into that, and so I was just like dead set, and I have to find more Pokemon media, more of it. So I looked up Pokemon podcasts, found yours by happenstance, and started listening to all of it, and then I was just like, oh man. And then, like, out of nowhere, like, some random episode, you're just like, oh, by the way, you guys can donate. And I was like, well, sure, yeah, I want more of this. And I went to go do that.
I can't tell you how appreciated that is. Like, thank you, sincerely, man. Like,
oh, yeah, I absolutely, I wish that you uploaded more frequently, but I also understand the difficulties with that.
Well, I'm trying, and you're helping, so thank you. I recently quit my job. And I got another job. I'm not doing this full time.
Okay.
I'm not that lucky. But I took a less paying job and less demanding job that's right near my house so that I could spend more time on this. And my roommate just moved out. So now I'm in the place alone. So I have to like struggle a little bit harder. So they're not coming out.
Trust me, I know that feeling.
As frequently as I'd like. I'm aiming to get 2 Silph Radios a month out. And the last maybe month or two, I've been on 1 a month. But I'm working. I'm still giving it my all.
When we had a lot of difficulties getting this one started between a lot of scheduling issues. Because I think we tried to record it like 2 weeks ago, and then
it happens.
Like, and it's been like 2 months since I did that whole thing. So
that's kind of why, though. Like, if I made these weekly, it wouldn't be a good podcast. Like the reason I mean I love Silph Radio. I take a lot of pride.
You'd have to be doing it full time.
Yeah. And I really take pride in, like, I want to be able to really thoroughly, fully research the topics, and I want to have something unique to bring to it, because one of my biggest gripes, like, there's a lot of Pokemon YouTubes, and I'm not a big fan of really any of them, and I feel like a lot of it is just, like, the same video that I've seen on someone else's YouTube, or it's just so outlandish that I can't get behind it. Like, no, Ash is not Misty. Come on, that's a dumb fan theory. But I really try hard to make sure that I'm bringing something that other people aren't saying, but that is grounded in reality.
Well, and one main thing that I absolutely love about Silph Radio was that you were, so obviously I'm younger, you know, and so I got introduced at a different point in time. You know, we're talking like Pokemon Fire Red was my intro, you know.
Okay.
And so you introduced me to a lot of things I had no idea about, like Pika-Blue and things like that. I've never heard of any of that until the Silph Radio podcast. So it was interesting getting to hear the start of it. Oh, man. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. Somebody just knocked on my door.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I came back from the person knocking on my door, which was Amazon, and my audio just completely stopped working, and we lost all of that. But don't worry. We do go on to record onto his podcast, and you can check that out in about September, like he said earlier in this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I definitely plan on having Nathan Capizar back. He's a phenomenal host of Silph Radio, and he's a very cool person. And hopefully, you know, we don't have to just talk about Pokemon, because he does have those other podcasts and whatnot. So, anyway, I hope you guys liked the video, what there was of it. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, do whatever it is you want to do. Check out his stuff. Have a good one.